journey beyond imposter syndrome. This is where I invite you into a space where high achievers and spiritual leaders converge to redefine success and self-worth. By sharing transformative stories and engaging with thought leaders, this podcast serves as a roadmap for navigating the complexities of imposter syndrome. It's an intimate look into overcoming personal barriers tailored for those who value wisdom, leadership, and intuition in business and life. Join me at the Humble Warrior Podcast with Alani Bankhead. Welcome to the Humble Warrior Podcast. I'm your host, Alani Bankhead, and today is a very special episode of the Humble Warrior Podcast. I'm so excited and honored to introduce to you one of my amazing guests and friends and clients, Pooja Chanda. So Pooja is a cybersecurity expert by trade. She's got over a decade of crazy experience in some of the biggest companies on the planet. She now has shifted to being an investigator where she's at the intersection of technology and cybersecurity and protecting the vulnerable. She's also the founder and CEO of Azadi Voice, which is a company whose mission is to educate and create awareness for parents who feel like they don't have the right tools to protect their kids from online threats. And we are here to talk about the messy middle. And I'm so excited to have you, Pooja. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm very excited.
People are going to love this. So, okay, first off, how did you get here?
So last year in the beginning of the year, I was let go from a big tech company, and I've never suffered a job loss before then, so it was like probably my rock bottom. And I took a week to be, crazy and upset and everything, and then I decided this isn't work I want to be doing anyway. I'm losing all this stress and sleep and all this stuff. So I'm just gonna find somebody that I can talk to that can help me get to where I do the work I want to do. So I'm going through all these, LinkedIn comments and stories about trafficking and CSAM and all this stuff, and I keep seeing Alani Bankhead pop up in the comments. And I was like, she looks like a badass. And she, has been doing all this stuff. So I sent Alani a message on LinkedIn and said, can I have 15 minutes of your time? Would you mind looking at my resume? I just need someone to point me in the right direction because I am not getting where I want to be. And that 15 minutes turned into 2 hours, and here we are.
We are here. And yes, tip number one for the listener, reach out, ask for help. And so, one of the things that I want to highlight about Pooja's story that she didn't mention was that you also messaged a bunch of other people.
I did, yeah.
And how was
Like
the response?
anyone and everyone in that space. One person messaged me back.
Yeah. So, I get this a lot. And I love that we started here because oftentimes people are like, I want to do what you do. How do I do that? Or they're like, how do I get my business off the ground? Or how do I get my first sale? And it literally is like, reach out to somebody who's done it or somebody you want to partner with and ask. And that can feel hard because oftentimes our inner imposters like, don't bother that person. They're kind of a big deal. I hear this all the time from people that are like, I know your time is really busy. And I'm like, yeah, but my mission is getting more people in the fight to live out their best lives because the world needs those solutions. Like we're in bad shape right now, right? And so, yeah, the majority of people didn't respond to you, but all you needed was one connection to
Yeah,
shift.
and that was a thought that I had to remind myself through this whole getting let go, finding a new job, figuring out the resume, all that stuff. You can apply to 100 jobs a day, and the odds are kind of against you because you're working against a machine, but you just need that one person to give you 5 minutes.
Totally. So let's back up because people don't really know that much about your background. But basically, for what was it, 10, 11, 12 years, you did all the things that everybody told you to do, which
Yeah.
which were what? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I got my undergrad in intelligence. I thought I was going to be a big bad FBI agent. I got to DC, got my butt kicked just from the culture, and I probably am a little bit more now, but at the time really young, fresh out of school, not a very political person. I had no support when I moved down there. So it was very scary. I was very, very shy, which I'm not today. So I left DC and I went to Target and like some financial institutions, and the more I got into other types of crime, I realized what I really wanted to do was help people that are being trafficked, and specifically children, and join the combat to fight child sexual exploitation.
I love that. So in the beginning, what took you to cybersecurity to begin with? Like, why that field?
So I decided to get my master's in cybersecurity because during my experience at the financial institutions, a lot of it was occurring online, whether it's transactions happening online or the content being shared online. So in my head, I was like, I think I can do a good job of marrying my intel with cybersecurity, and that'll probably open up an easier pathway for me to get to investigate those types of crimes.
Okay, so for you, cybersecurity was a pathway to get to where you wanted to be, which was
Yeah, yeah,
investigations.
yeah. Had no tech background. I have no interest in technology, other than keeping up with the trends and stuff. But it was an effort moment, and I just sent in an application and gave it a shot.
There you go. I love that you said that for a lot of reasons because so you were following your intuition on what you thought was the next right step to getting to where you wanted to be, right? So you were in these banking institutions, very big banks, and you got your master's degree in cybersecurity. By the way, guys, she went to the top intelligence school in the country, Mercyhurst. So she's not a low achiever. Like Pooja's being very humble, but she is a very high achiever in every way. So Pooja, like when you came to me, and I'm going to give my perspective, and I'm curious like what was happening on your end. But what I remember hearing was like, I've done what everybody's told me to do my whole life, and I'm not where I want to be. And I'm really, really frustrated. So, what had to happen for you to get to that like last rope of like, I literally have thought of everything and nothing has worked to hit that rock bottom? Like, what had to happen to get you there?
Yeah, so I will say there were two or three times where I was like handed the dream job. And every time I couldn't take it because of where I was with my current salary, and I just couldn't afford the pay cut, which is a really unfortunate circumstance of wanting to do this type of work. So it was heartbreaking, and I really got to a point where I was like, this is just where I'm gonna be. I'm gonna be in corporate, and these are the skills where there's money and whatever. And I think I needed to be fired. I needed to be let go. So I was, because the universe was like, this is the kick that she needs to refocus what she needs to do. So it was a rough blessing in disguise.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm so thankful that you said that for a lot of reasons, but because no high achiever, no, not even an average person wants to get fired, right? Like that's just not a fun situation. But I think you're highlighting something that I see a lot of in this community, which is we really want to be of service and we want to help wherever we are, right? And it's sort of like a toxic relationship where you're like, no, I'm going to make it work as best as I can. Like, I see the good in you, I see the potential in you, toxic partner. And like, I'm going to bend myself whatever way I have to. And so it sounds like maybe the universe was like sending these signs that this wasn't the right place for you. And Pooja was like hanging on, trying to make it work. And the universe was like, we need to break up. It's not them, or no, it's not you, it's them, right?
Yeah.
Like, time to go. So, out of curiosity, like, you have this beautiful hindsight now of, man, at the time it sucked, but I now see that it had to happen. So, for the person right now that's listening to this who just found out that they got fired or their job got eliminated or whatever it might be, like, what is it that you would tell them knowing what you know now?
did you even want to be there in the first place? If the answer is no, then that door closed for a reason. And, don't be scared to go after what you want to go after. And now's the time to do it because you're at square zero, so there's nothing to lose at this point.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So you didn't even go to like, well, everything will be nice. You're like, did you even want to be there? Did
Yeah,
you?
yeah,
Because I don't think you did, right? Like, and there's so much truth to that of the universe gives us like really what we deserve, which, I have a belief that like it comes from The Alchemist, the book by Paulo Coelho, that like all the universe is conspiring and helping you to achieve what you want, even if that means it has to lop off parts of your past that are no longer serving you.
right.
So God, I love that you shared that. Let's talk through, you have your boohoo week, right? Of moping, you reach out to me, we connect. What has been the process since then to get you to where you are doing the work that you want to do now?
One was probably learning about imposter syndrome. You hear all the buzzwords all the time, but you never think that it's you, or you don't believe it. For a long time, I was like, no, I really am an imposter. I'm not a technical person. I don't know why I'm in these cybersecurity jobs. And I think the second big thing for me was learning that I don't have to join another organization to do the work I want to do. I can create my own solution, which are 100% Alani words. And I never thought that way. I never thought that I had any business creating my own solution or being the org that I want to join. Reframing my mindset was in terms of looking at it that way was awesome.
Oh my goodness. So I really appreciate what you said about like, you hear the buzzwords, but like, I didn't think I had it right. So it's like different phases of awareness of like, okay, I know what imposter syndrome is. That's not me. But then, like, when that little nagging voice comes up of like, I think it is you. And then it's like, no, I don't want to, like, you don't want to address it, right? Because it can be really hard to look at the mirror of yourself and acknowledge that you are where you are because of the choices that you made, right?
Yeah.
And it's not, we're not saying like that anybody is avoiding those choices, but the reality of like, you do take responsibility for what you do and who you are and what you've built. But in terms of taking responsibility for creating that universe of justice and abundance, and I'm not going with the flow anymore. It's who am I and what solutions do I really want to offer the world? Like, what do I think needs to be created? Like, that's a whole other level of ownership that most people are never awakened to.
Yeah.
So, out of curiosity, because I think one thing I love about your story is you've always had this innate voice kind of pushing you to advocate and help others and seek justice and all of those things. So, can you share with me, like, where did that come from? How was little Pooja, like, how did this part get cultivated into your personality?
Yeah. Gosh, I think my earliest memory, there's probably a couple. One is my family's from India. My parents are from India. So the first time I went there where I could remember, I was 8 years old. And you have, a certain amount of luggage you can take. And our luggage was 90% stuff for our family. And I didn't understand it conceptually, but I remember my mom saying they don't get this stuff there, like peanut butter, jelly, cake mix, like stuff that we just totally take for granted. So we go to India, and the one day we walk outside my grandma's house, and poverty is like right in your face. There is no, you need to go to that neighborhood to see it. It's just right there. So we're walking to wherever we were going, and I saw this mother on this, what you would call a sidewalk there, and an infant, I mean, not even sitting up on its own yet. I don't remember if it was a boy or girl, but a baby, just on this like thin sheet blanket. I don't even know what it was, but and that was the baby's bed. 37 today, and I think I was 7 or 8 when I had this experience. I've never forgotten that. And all I can think is, how do people survive that? How do they go from day to day and smile? But you see, you go to a place like India and they're all happy and smiling and getting through life. And it was just like, I don't know, it was shattering for me to see a child suffer like that or not have the things that I'm so accustomed to having.
Totally.
Um, and then and and my parents are very giving people. And another memory I have is my mom bought me and my brother these little bank, like piggy bank things, and it had three parts to it, and one was savings, and one was college or something, and the third was church. And I was like, we don't go to church. Why am I putting money in a church? And my mom said, it's always important to put money aside to help other people. And it doesn't matter if you do it through church or whatever, however you do it, but you've set money aside for someone else, whether you know them or not. And that stuck with me. And now I'm probably more giving than she wants me to be. But
No.
that's where it came from.
Yeah, I love those examples so much. They really do illustrate who you are as a person. That, little Pooja's heart would break so badly for people that, they probably don't remember you. It was just like a fleeting moment passing by on the sidewalk, right? But I asked that question because what I have found is all humble warriors have like these breadcrumbs that kind of the universe or God, whatever you want to call it, has been like laying on your path to point you to like what your purpose is, right? So the fact that you went from that as a little girl, as like this core memory
Yeah,
to where you are now, right? And this whole messy process of like, okay, I have parents that are giving and generous. And like now, maybe, I'm generous to a fault, right?
yeah,
My parents probably want me to pull back a little bit, but behavior is a language. And so the fact that you are so generous, and we're going to talk finances in a little bit, but it just goes to show that the love and the connection that you have to being generous, like it just oozes out of your pores and is one of the things that makes you so great, right? But thank you for sharing. Those are really lovely. So, with that being said, because we're talking messy middle, right? So, let talk to us about how you found this current position. I know, like, you don't have to talk about the company itself, but you were an investigator protecting the vulnerable, right? She's doing some really badass stuff, you guys. But you had to fight to get here. So, like, what happened after we met to you getting the position that you think for you were the pivotal things out? We talked about understanding what imposter syndrome is. I had it. Once you overcame that, like, what did you do to get to where you wanted to be?
yeah. I don't think I fully overcome it. I think it'll probably always be a work in progress for me. I'm doing a lot better than where I was when you met me. But I was encouraged to open my own business. And that stemmed from talking about other experiences I had as a kid and what what I have wanted as a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old in trouble with whatever, and then being that solution. For me, it was there are so many parents out there that aren't American or they're not accustomed to the traditions and the cultures here. Or there's a language barrier, or they don't have time to tune in to school life and whatever. Um, who is reaching out to those parents and one, making them feel included, like they belong in society, because I'm not sure that that is the truth for everybody. And is anyone pausing to think about the technology that we're allowing to surround allowing in our kids' lives? Um, and I don't think anyone's thinking about it, especially for my generation. We were on in a we were in the best place, I think, between, having the analog stuff and having Sega and Nintendo. and having a cell phone where you could text your friends. But it was just texting and there wasn't much else. Um, I don't think we're thinking about what would we have gotten into if we did have a phone with a camera and the internet. And if there was more than just a chat room, if there was a web-based game you can play where you can chit chat with strangers and no one's batting an eyelash because it's a game for kids. Want to, with my business, spread that education and awareness to parents so that they can have the right tools to help their kids, one, understand, the responsibility that comes with having a device or being on the internet. And then, you don't hand a kid keys to a Corvette and not teach them how to put on a seatbelt. So we shouldn't be doing that with this either. And since a lot of the grooming and CSAM and trafficking and all of that stuff is born out of these places, then maybe that's where we need to focus our education for adults that are in charge of kids.
Yes. For those who don't know what CSAM is, it's an acronym for child sex abuse material. And I really love that example that you gave. And I also want to go back to as you were getting ready to open up that business, there was a conversation I remember we had that I think the listeners would appreciate. Because when we were talking about this, right, we're trying to figure out like what is Pooja's life purpose? What solutions do you think the world needs that you can provide, right? And when the idea of this business came up, you had said something to the effect of, but there are already so many organizations doing that, right? There's the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. All the really big names are out there. And you had this very honest moment of like, but like the
Who am
space
I?
is saturated, right?
Yeah.
Who am I? And like the space is saturated. And I asked you, I was like, is the problem getting better or worse? And
Yeah.
right. And you were like, it's getting worse. It's like, well, then there's space for another
Yes.
solution, right? So I'm curious if you remember that conversation. And if so, like, what was going on in your head as we were talking through that?
That was another moment where I needed the kick in the ass to reframe how I was looking at it. And I do remember that conversation because you were 100% right. It's the problem's getting worse with all these big organizations. And even with them, people, parents, I'll say, at least from my very small sampling, they're unaware of NCMEC or Thorn or Skull Games, or, all these big players out there that are doing all this important work. Unless a family has been impacted by something crazy, they're generally not sure, or they're not even thinking about it. They're not even thinking about it. Yeah, it was again shifting the way that I'm thinking about things. Even last year, I set up a webinar. Mostly friends and family came to it, which was fine. Like it was fun, and it was good practice. And then I had a second one set up that I canceled because there's a local organization where I live that was presenting on the same topic. So I was like, I'll cancel mine because theirs is free, mine's paid. So I attended theirs and it was good, but it was another way for me to see like I would have talked about the same stuff. So I do know what I'm talking about. And it was another like encouraging moment where, don't cancel it, reschedule it for another time and just keep at it.
Yes. And it's funny hearing you reflect back what your experience was like, because, and this is another important point for the listener, I think, is we talk a lot about like what's your purpose and like what are you meant to put out there, right? And a lot of times I get people that say I don't know, right? They're not sure. So another reframe that I use is what seems so obvious to you or what pisses you off about the world. And people can ramble all day about that stuff, right? And so you would very briefly mention there are people I discovered that had never heard of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They'd never heard of Skull Games. They've never heard of these entities, right? And for you, you're probably like, how do you not know about this, right? But the reality is that's because that's your sweet spot expertise. Like you
Yeah.
have all the information, right? And so for the listener, I would encourage you to apply that filter to what you're thinking about starting, because the reality is, if it's obvious to you, that's an indicator that that's your gift to give to the world because it does come easily. And the hard part is oftentimes we're like, are people going to want to pay me to do this very easy thing? It's easy for you. It's actually not easy for everybody else. And I love too that even though you canceled your one event, the opportunity there was you were like, oh, I knew all that stuff.
Yeah.
They're actually not better than me,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. There was a moment of, oh my gosh, this organization is established, well respected in the community. And they're a fantastic group of people and they have, the licenses and certifications and all these things that I don't have. But the formal stuff, but I'm like, it was all the same content. It was coming from a different perspective. And that was another thing. Like I can offer a unique perspective from somebody who works in the tech space in security, and I'm seeing all the different things that are going on and the way that people fall for fraud and XYZ. So,
Right, exactly. And Pooja is working at the intersection of some really exciting stuff. Like, as someone who's been in that space a long time, I'm really stoked to see what you come up with because, and the reality is that these things that we're talking about are hard, right? Humble warriors, their purpose or the communities that they're called to serve are dealing with really complex societal issues. But the reality is that you have a gift to offer and you're offering it, right? So you're making that difference for that one person today. One example that I would love to highlight that you neglected to mention about your first event was even though you're like, oh, it's mostly friends and family that came, there were some not friends and family who came that surprised you.
yeah.
Tell me about that.
My my DJ from my wedding tuned in that day, and I was so excited because I love this group of guys. They're awesome. And he had like great questions that generated conversation that was well received by the rest of the group that was there that day. So it was really cool.
Yeah. So the point is, and this is something that Pooja and I had talked a lot about, it was you have this belief that people aren't going to show up or that they don't want the product. But your job is to not worry about the end state. It's to put your gift out there and let go of the result, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you built this thing, you had some unexpected company, which is the point of a business, right? You're attracting clients. And basically, what this interaction was communicating to you, based on what I observed, was you put it out there. This guy's like, oh my gosh, yeah, I want to know more about this. He came to you, you provided the information. And I remember after the fact, there were a couple things where, like one of them, as an example that you mentioned, was there were people that were like, oh, I didn't realize that letting my kids take their devices into their bedrooms at night was probably not a best practice, right? As a parent.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. One of the, we were talking about, what can we do as parents and some easy takeaways or don't let them take their phones to with them in their bedrooms at night. And it was like a light bulb moment for the crowd. And I'm like, well, you're not in there at 1 o'clock in the morning when they might be texting a stranger. So it
Right.
was obvious stuff for me because I'm reading it and in it every day. But I realized that not everyone is hyper focused on this subject.
Totally. And, as someone who's also in the space, when I do talks, whether it's parents or teachers or whatever, I always tell them, I'm like, you guys all ask me, like, what's the best app and all this stuff. And I always say, like, it's not about the app, right? It's about you having the confidence that you need to know that you're protecting your kid. That's really what you want.
Yeah,
And when we talk about ultimately, like if I were to ask an impartial parent, how much would you pay for the confidence to know that you're protecting your kid from online exploitation? They're like, I'll give you all my money, right? That's
everything.
my
Yeah,
kid.
yeah,
And so I'm like, oh, so the prices for our webinars are actually like cheap then, right?
yeah, yeah,
And so ultimately, like you're exchanging money for the time and the confidence level. And them getting to that place of understanding of like, okay, I have some actionable tips that make sense. And like the light bulb, it's like, oh yeah, actually, that does make sense. But that's why you pay someone for their services, is to make your life easier, better, more efficient, whatever it might be. So I love that you shared that example because it was a process to get you to this place of doing the first webinar, right? But you were surprised by who showed up, the content of the conversation, and it gave you a little bit more input and clarity around, no, actually, this is needed. People are interested. My job is to just put the goods out there and see who shows up.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, let's talk about finances for a couple of minutes because you mentioned earlier, you're like, I was handed my dream job a couple of times, but I couldn't afford to take the pay cut. And it was really heartbreaking for you. So, tell me a little bit more about where were you? Where are you now in terms of what have you learned about your own journey with financial wellness that maybe younger you would have liked to know?
Yeah, I think I wish I told younger me just take the job cut. It'll be fine. Especially because one of the times I was living at home with my parents and I got the offer and it wasn't gonna be enough to pay all my bills. But looking back now, I think what one of the things that we talk about a lot is the universe coming in, or God, or whatever you believe in, coming in when you need it. And that, going through the coaching forced me to look back and recognize all those moments when I did literally everything that I could, and the rest was up to whoever. And in every one of those moments, I received what I needed. So if I could go back in time and tell my younger self, like, if you really want this and that's where your heart is, trust it, go for it. You're gonna be okay.
Oh, man.
And if it doesn't work out, you can always, jobs are jobs. You can go get another one, go get a side gig, you'll figure it out.
Absolutely. And I just want to point out the difference in your emotional output just in sharing that story. So, initially you're like, I was handed my dream job a couple times and I couldn't afford the pay cut and it was so heartbreaking and I could feel I'm like, "Oh God, that's so terrible," right? But then as you talked about in hindsight what you would tell your younger self, you're like, "Take the job, take the pay cut. You're going to figure it out." Like you have the benefit of hindsight knowing that like the universe had your back. It always
Yeah.
did. And but at the same time acknowledging that like all of those experiences got you to this place,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so also a distinct kind of difference I'm hearing is the first decision was made from a place of like financial fear, right? So
Yeah.
like you were like, "Oh my gosh, I want to, but I'm not in a financial position where I can do that." So I'm scared about what might happen if I take this pay cut. So I'm going to stay with the secure job and not pursue the dream. So, what have you done since then to shift your financial position to get you more to that place of making decisions from a place of financial power and trust as compared to when you were younger?
Yeah, I think I made a lot of choices out of fear instead of, taking a second to think about it. And with this specific example, like I said, I was living with my parents when I got one of the dream offers. And I don't know, well, maybe it was because I wanted to prove that I'm fully independent and I don't need help. It was a choice I made to live with my parents when I came back. Um, but I could have asked for the help. I could have asked for, Mom, can you help me out, while I get back on my feet with this job that I really, really want to do. And they 100% would have helped me. But I and I'm still working on this, but I get into a place of I can do it by myself. And there is no by yourself. Like, life is so much harder and worse when you're by yourself. So when you have family and you have friends and you have people that care about you, use your village. That's why they're there.
Yes.
And it has taken me a long time to understand that and feel okay with with asking for the help.
Mhm.
In terms of financial decisions, you know, money was, you know, we never had a ton of it. So I grew up with a lot of, you know, be careful where you're spending it and this and that, whatever. And then for a while, like with the big tech jobs, I was making pretty good money. And so then I was spending it a lot. And you'll laugh, I don't have anything to show for all of the spending I did because it's, oh, this elephant needs rehab in Thailand somewhere, so I'm gonna I'm gonna donate to this GoFundMe. Or during COVID, I had no idea that people were like couldn't buy groceries because they lost their jobs because they couldn't go to work anymore. And that was wild to me. We live in the richest country in the world, supposedly. No one should not have food. So I started out with Instacarting groceries to people. Like I was taking orders on Facebook and then sending Instacart orders to all these people. And then that became not sustainable because I'm just one person. And so I put out a message in the community Facebook group, and then what I saw was a whole bunch of people wanted to contribute, but I wasn't reaching anybody that needed help around where we live because we are lucky and we live in a good area. So I collected all these people and started a different Facebook group and said, okay, I think the best way to reach people that need help is to maybe support the local food pantry. So then we started doing food drives and getting lists from the pantry and figuring out what they need and focusing our efforts there. And it was great, but it took me spending too much money to realize that I like there's other ways to help
Yeah.
and figure this out.
Yes. That journey, though, is so powerful because it does illustrate a great point of something else I see in this community a lot, which is unfettered values and life purpose, right? So you're a very generous person. Like you have this beautiful memory of your parents teaching you that like you always set aside money to help others, right? And you love that so much you embodied it and took it to a whole other level where you're giving to the point where you're cutting into bone in your
Yeah.
own life. And, where society does say like you should give, right? Like this is very altruistic and everybody should do that. The average humble warrior gives so much, they'll give to the point of like complete burnout, like complete rock bottom. And then you kind of end up in this place where you ask yourself, how did I get here? Like I did all the things society told me to do. So why am I resentful? Why am I frustrated? Why do I have not
Yeah.
any money in my account, right? Kind of thing. So this is where we introduce the idea of like putting your own financial oxygen mask on first, right? Because if we look back on, and I don't do regrets personally. I think every experience I've ever had has brought me here and I'm super thankful for all of it. But I had my own financial stuff back in the day. And my stories like 5 figures of consumer debt. I got an eviction notice one time. I stole money from an ex-boyfriend. Like I did all the things, right? And I remember the first time in Joyful Money Club when I talked about that, there were people like jaws on the floor. They're like, you? And I'm like, oh, honey, yes, I was a hot mess too back in the day. Like we all are, right? But the point is that if you'd had your financial oxygen mask on back then, you could have taken the leap into the dream job with the pay cut and been
Yeah.
okay, right? You could
Yeah.
have rallied these folks during the pandemic earlier and pooled the resources, right? And by the way, folks, we're highlighting one of Pooja's other gifts, which is rallying and bringing communities together for the greater good. So she's really, really good at that. But these were all learning experiences that oftentimes pain is the best teacher. And now you're in this place where you're like, okay, like I love myself. Like that version of me was so beautiful. And she's also learned. And if I want to get to my next level, I have to learn how to set boundaries around my beautiful little heart that just wants to give and give and give. Because when I do that, it's actually not selfish. You're actually setting yourself up to have more impact down the road. So, one of the other things that I wanted to point out too is what you said earlier about helping or using the village, right? Asking for the help and not doing it alone is for those people listening mostly don't know you, but the reality is that you would help anybody.
Yeah.
That's who you are as a person. And so I don't know why, but people in our community often think like if I ask for help, somehow it means like that I'm
Like
taking
you're
away.
lesser. Yeah.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about what was going on in your head before you came to your It Takes a Village epiphany.
I don't know what was on in my head. I don't know where it came from. That's probably it probably needs a little bit of exploring, but I've always been very independent and very I can take care of myself. I'm not gonna, let my parents worry or feel like they can't focus on their own lives now. Like they're done. I'm 40 almost.
Right.
It's their turn to enjoy their lives. So I think, once I got out of college and even through college, I didn't want to be a burden or be someone that someone has to worry about. And, I took it to a place of credit card debt because I wasn't asking for help when I needed it. So everything went on a credit card when I couldn't do it by myself, which carried into my married life. And then that was something the two of us had to tackle together. And, I also want to not have regrets. So that was a time where I made a bunch of choices, but I learned from them and we're doing better now. And it's taken a lot of, I joined Joyful Money Club and it's been great. And it's honestly just been pausing and reprioritizing things for yourself and choosing where you want to spend your resources, whether it's your money or your time or your energy or your phone, whatever it is. With the money piece, it was, now we stop and think like, do we want to put this, let's order out. We can because we have it, but would we rather put that in the savings account for something else, something better down the road, or do we want to eat crappy Chinese takeout again and feel horrible about it?
I love that. So it all is all a learning journey, and you're doing so beautifully. And I know we have a hard stop because someone has to go pick up their little. And so we're setting boundaries around our time. But Pooja, I am so thankful that you shared your story for a lot of different reasons. I'm so thankful we did it in this format because so often you see these like high success people, which you are, I consider you to be one, but we're in the middle of this very messy part of your next chapter of you're recreating yourself into what you always wanted to be. And that takes courage, it takes authenticity, it takes a village. And you're asking for the same level of support that you offer everybody without even thinking about, right? So that's always something I know I challenge people with where I'm like, would you do it for them? And then they're always like, yes. I'm like, then let someone else do it for you. Like people love
Yeah.
you, people want to see you be successful. And the reality is, the more that you self care yourself, you're going to get to a point where the mission, the thriving, it's all going to come. You're going to make more money. Self worth equals net worth. And so, with that being said, Pooja, I know people are going to want to connect. Where can they get a hold of you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I think my name on there is Pooja Chanda. That's my official name. Pooja is a nickname that I prefer. And you can, yeah, just send me a message on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest right now.
Yes, and we will link that in the show notes so you guys can connect with her that way. Pooja, you are so inspiring to me. It has been such an honor and so much fun to watch you grow into this badass. And you've already been successful, but I know your real joy and thriving is right around the corner, and I can't wait to keep celebrating with you.
Thank you.
So, guys, if you're looking for more resources, check out my life purpose exercise freebie on my website, mightysparrowcoaching.com. There's video prompts to help guide you. Or you can check out my best-selling book, The Least of Us, How Your Imposter Syndrome Points to Your Greatest Power, available at all major book retailers. And if you want to join Joyful Money Club, we have the September cohort starting. It's the last Wednesday in September. You come to this community of amazing humans who are doing badass, amazing, fun things in their flavor. You're going to love it. So DM me on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn at Mighty Sparrow Coaching. And until next time, Humble Warriors, please remember the world needs who you were made to be. Thank you for joining us today on this journey to discover how you can harness your imposter to work for you. If you enjoyed this episode and would like some help overcoming your imposter syndrome, check out the free life purpose exercise on my website and subscribe to my blog. If you already know what your life purpose is and are ready to crush or harness your imposter syndrome, then you're going to love my best-selling book, The Least of Us, How Your Weakness Points to Your Greatest Power, available on Amazon and all major book retailers. Or you can hit me up at alani@mightysparrowcoaching.com to discuss private coaching or corporate and government training. That's ALANI@mightysparrowcoaching.com. Listen, there's only ever been one you, and there will only ever be one you. And you have a specific gift to give that the world desperately needs. Don't let your self-doubt be the thing preventing you from living your most joyful and impactful life. Until next time, I'm always cheering you on.